In this video, I want to talk specifically about synthetic meat versus real beef. And I did a video previously about how Bill Gates is going around the country and buying up massive amounts of farmland. And in that video, I talked about some myths about why he's doing this. And one of them was maybe he's just investing in money because right now farmland is a great place to invest. Big investors are coming in and getting together and buying up a lot of land because it's a good investment. Bad thing is it puts that family-owned business out of business. When you have family members, they're trying to buy land, maybe from their grandparents or from their parents, they can't afford it if they're competing with these big investment companies. So that's the bad thing. I also brought up the myth that maybe he's doing it for climate change, which he insists that he's not. But after you watch this video, there are some connections. Or maybe he's just trying to control population food. Who knows? But now, if Bill Gates was trying to make soy burgers, it makes sense that he would want to buy all of that farmland and grow soy. The problem is he was really involved in that and made some massive investments, but soy, to grow it on a huge scale, takes pesticides. And if you think about it, pesticides is counterproductive to saving the planet or saving our environment. So he kind of started steering away from that, from what I'm reading, into looking at the fake burgers or the synthetic beef as opposed to the plant-based beef. Now, I'm getting all my information on the internet, and I have to assume that 100% of it is true since we have a new czar in place that will be monitoring our misinformation. So anything that you find that you think may not be true, then you are welcome to search yourself. I am just looking and trying to answer some questions. It did spark an interest in me about trying to figure out what exactly is synthetic meat. Now, I've heard of plant-based meat, and basically that is when you might use soy in the ingredients and other plant-based material to make a hamburger like they did at McDonald's, the Impossible Burger, I think it was called. That made a little bit of sense. It's plant-based and maybe vegans like it. It's more healthy, maybe a lot of plant. I don't know. I don't eat them. But this is not plant-based. This is fake meat. It's synthetic. And actually, I'm going to give you some names that they call this fake meat, AKA fake meat, cultured meat, clean meat, lab-grown meat. That one kind of is scary, isn't it? Animal-free meat, artificial meat, cellular meat, engineered meat, in vitro meat. So right there tells you it's being grown in a little dish in a lab. And last but not least, which is not a popular name, they call it Frankenmeat. So that'll give you an idea of what's going on. I want you to watch this little short clip that I found about how they process the meat. I thought this video could describe it best.
But how exactly does one grow meat in a lab? The process isn't as weird as you might think. Currently, the most successful method involves harvesting stem cells from cows. Stem cells are the building blocks of essentially everything, from muscles to organs, from which muscle tissue is harvested from the live animal in what is said to be a harmless, painless procedure. The tissue is made up of muscle and fat cells, which the scientists separate from one another. What we need are the muscles, which are then dissected and cultured. Cell culturing is where a cell is removed from a plant or animal and then put into a favorable artificial environment, usually some type of substrate that supplies essential nutrients like amino acids and carbohydrates to grow. All it takes is just one singular muscle stem cell to grow up to 1 trillion muscle cells. The newly grown muscle cells naturally merge together to form tiny myotubes, which are then placed in a ring. The muscle cell's tendency to contract frequently causes them to grow into a small strand of muscle tissue. The muscle tissue tubes are then layered together to form a hamburger shape. One muscle cell has the potential to turn into 1 trillion muscle tissue strands, which is a lot of burgers. The lab-grown hamburgers don't quite look like normal hamburgers and are much paler in color and blander in taste. But as scientists point out, that blander taste is a fair trade for an efficient way to create protein and feed the world's growing population. The price of lab-grown hamburgers has already dropped from $325,000 to just over $11 per patty, While it is still pricey compared to a Big Mac, which costs $4.79 on average, the price will likely drop in the future as production methods are streamlined, meaning that more likely than not, lab-grown meat will be on your dinner plate in the near future.
You may ask, what is my obsession or my interest in Bill Gates? And basically, we're in a world or in a culture right now that these people that have billions and billions of dollars can change the way we live. They can change the dynamics of everything in our world. And actually, there's a lot of them looking to do that. And I want to show this video because I want you to see how one man and one process can really change the way that some people live out in the country, or a whole community of people like the Amish, and how it's going to affect them if these things are put into place. Who is Bill Gates? That's one of my questions. We know that he's a billionaire. He believes in controlling the population. There's a lot of information about that. He believes in climate change. He believes that we have to save the planet and do things to do that. And he believes that synthetic meat is the way to go in rich countries. He is not promoting this in your third world countries where he believes that they should be able to still grow cattle and do it the old way, if that makes sense. Right now, as a multi-billionaire, he owns enough farmland that is the size of New York State. So you will read some articles where he owns most of the farmland in America, but I'm reading too that there's another multi-billionaire that owns more than him. So it looks like there's a race between them. But that just gives you an idea of who he is and the power that he can have in changing the lifestyle of a small community of Amish people, across the world. There's not that many in all the states. I think they're only in 19 states right now, and maybe less than 100,000 in each. So it's not massive amounts of people, but his decisions can affect a lot of people live, especially our Amish neighbors. So after watching this video, I kind of regress. I personally have to believe that Bill has a climate-based agenda for buying farmland. Again, I don't know the man. I don't know what he's up to, but I kind of lean towards that. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so how does all of this affect my Amish neighbors? Amish people in general, Amish families, about 10% of them rely 100% on farming, and that's not a high percent. We usually always think of all Amish people relying on farming to live. Now, with that, most of them do own some acreage and they farm for their family, or they may farm, they'll have a few animals, cattle, a couple cows, they'll have some goats and sheep and things like that to take care of their own family. And then they'll take the excess to the local market, which is usually a local general store. And as you can see in some of this video, I've done a video about our local Amish store. You can go in there and order meat. They don't really have a big freezer full of meat. They'll have a few items. But if you're interested and you say, hey, I want to get a half of a cow or a fourth of a cow, you can go in there and order it. There's local butchers around here as well. So basically, it's a lifestyle for them. It's another revenue of income. I know some Amish neighbors that they'll do 4 or 5 different things. They'll have produce, they'll have their cattle, they may, and then have a trade that they have. They might have a lumber yard, or they may have sell produce. So, or go out and actually, do construction and things like that. So they're typically not a one income stream for the family. They usually have lots of different things going on. So locally, we do have the stores that they bring their goods to, and English are allowed to go in there as well. So that's pretty cool that we can also go in and buy from our local community. So I end this video with some questions. Will this new way of creating meat put our family-owned cattle farmers out of business across America, not just our Amish? Will our Amish community be allowed to still own their own private cattle and butcher them and still be able to do that? Or are they going to be taxed? And how does this affect their way of life? Well, one of the things they strive to do is to avoid government control. That you can see a video up here where I talk about electricity and how they try to stay off the grid, not because they're against electricity, but they don't want to be dependent on the government. And this will just create another way that all of us will be dependent on the government for our meat, and we won't be able to grow our own. Is that going to happen? Yeah, I've got a couple more, a playlist up here for you to look at if you're interested in learning more about the Amish. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and you have a blessed day.